welcome to 52 Weeks of Art. I'm Jenna Layton and you are on week 3. Today we are going to talk about the element of art, shape. Print out your PDF, grab your supplies, and let's get started. First one says shape is an enclosed space. So the difference between this, that's still a curved line, even though it's making its way to a circle. If we want to turn it into a shape, now we have a circle because it is enclosed. The 3 basic shapes are a circle, a rectangle, which includes squares. So a square is always a rectangle, but not all rectangles are square. And the 3rd shape is a triangle. There are a lot of different methods of drawing, but one of those methods is using shapes, using simple shapes. So if you want to try to draw something, you can always try to break it down into these 3 simple shapes. Types of shapes. So when we talk about a shape, it will either be geometric or organic. A geometric shape, these are all geometric shapes, circles, squares, triangles. They generally have names associated with them, like a diamond, I believe, is a rhombus. Organic shapes don't necessarily have a specific name. They are usually found in nature. So we might do, we might feel inspired by Henry Matisse and do some coral or a leaf type shape. Most geometric shapes have straight lines, except of course the circle. Organic shapes generally have, they're curvier. Another way that we would describe shapes are positive shapes and negative shapes. The best way to think of this is if you had a cookie cutter and you cut a cookie out, the cookie would be the positive shape. And when you picked up the cookie to put it on the pan, what you have left over is the negative shape or negative space. So that's where the dough is. These lines represent the dough. So if you had the actual shape, that's positive. If the shape is gone, then it is negative, a negative shape. Another art term that we use is mass. Mass is sort of like shape's cousin. Mass is an area without defined edges. And we use mass to cover lots of the surface area. That is a mass. A way that I like to start my paintings, actually. Just to start covering the surface of the canvas. A lot of times it will not stay that way. You might not even see the orange on the bottom by the end of the painting. But it's a great way to get down a layer. Mass can be an opaque layer, which is generally color undiluted. A lot of times trying to find a good opaque color means that it has white added to it. Next is a transparent layer, and this one appeared to be pretty transparent. Hopefully the purple is dry so that we can see. Oh, water, I should have used watercolor. That is very transparent. So see how if I go over that black line, it's not really covering it up. And would also, you could see through it with the purple too. So you can dilute something by either adding water to it, like I'm diluting this orange acrylic, or you can add a medium to it, like a floating medium. Glazing is really fun to do with watercolors, so we're gonna do a little glazing with watercolor. The tricky thing is that this paper is just copy paper, so it is actually just going right through. The water is going right through because it is not very thick. Okay, let's glaze this orange with some blue. So now it has this nice glaze of blue. And the last one that we'll talk about today is whitewashing or veiling. So whitewashing or veiling requires you to have white paint and you paint over the top of it, over the top of something. So it's technically not really a whitewash if I don't have anything there, but now I'm whitewashing the blue and the orange as I move toward it. I'm going to put this paper aside while I wait for it to dry, and then I'm going to turn it over and we're going to talk about another way of drawing. While I do that, I'm going to show you a better example of whitewashing. So see how I have these little color masses, and then now I'm whitewashing so that I'm covering up some of these masses. And I actually made a nice little negative shape there. Okay, I flipped over my sketchbook page, and now we are going to discuss some of the basic elements that make up any drawing. So we've already talked about lines, we've talked about straight lines, we've talked about curved lines, and angular lines. So if you think about it, the straight line is sort of like a rectangle, the curved line is sort of like the start of a circle, and the angle is sort of like a triangle. So you can see how these basic shapes can also translate into what I'm talking about. The next thing is circles. I've seen people start with a bunch of circles and create great, fantastic drawings from just drawing circles. Okay, so we have one circle that's just the outline and one that's filled in. So if you can do a straight line, a curved line, an angular line, and circles, then you really can draw anything. The way to remember this little acronym, I wish I knew where I heard this, but it's oils. So you spell the word oils. So you have your circle, you have your straight line, you have your dot, you have your angled line, and you have your curved lines. So that's a good way to remember this. So there are lots of lines that can fall into the straight line, the curved line, the angular line. So now go around your house and look for these lines. Look for straight lines, curved lines, angular lines, and look for circles or filled in circles. I think one of the easiest ways to see a filled in circle is to look at your plug outlet. Those always have the filled in circles. All right, grab an index card, a few supplies, a few of your favorite supplies. we are going to talk about shape. So what we're going to do is we are going to pick a shape, any shape that you would like to draw. So if you want to draw a couple of shapes out, I just love wonky circles. The assignment is to do this shape, or whatever shape you choose, 5 times, but you have to do them in completely different ways. I would love to see what different shapes you come up with, and I'd love for you to tell me how you did them. Alright, so I did a couple of different things. One thing that makes this project a lot easier is just the fact that I was using different mediums. So I used acrylic, I used watercolor, I used oil pastels, and I used collage. And I'm going to, as always, write out what I did on the back of the card, and then we'll get started on our project. Okay, for this project, you are going to need your watercolors. You're going to need your Sharpie pen. I'll probably use the fine Sharpie pen rather than the thick Sharpie pen, but I'm not sure yet if I'm gonna need this one too. So I just grabbed it. Some paintbrushes and water and a towel, an old rag or a paper towel, and let's get started. So a little note about picking your subject matter. Don't overthink this. Don't try to look for the perfect subject matter. If you do that, you will wind up not getting anything done. So if you need to, set a timer for like 5 minutes and pick a picture. Now, the way that I choose subject matter is I usually just go through my photos that I've taken, because I don't like to use other people's photos because of copyright. But there is an excellent website called unsplash.com where you can get pictures and use them royalty free, so you won't get in trouble for using them if you need to. And after you find your picture, or if you want to just use a picture out of a magazine or the newspaper, that's okay too. Print it out and put it by your side. But what I want you to do is I want you to turn it upside down. We are going to draw our picture upside down. That way, this forces us to look at the curves and the dots, the straight lines and the angled lines without getting caught up in what our brain thinks it knows. So that's what we're going to do is, and the other challenge is that you're going to do it all in Sharpie pen. This picture might turn out to look nothing like what you were trying to draw. That's okay. Over and over again, I will say that. It's okay. My picture might not turn out. I might spend most of my time looking at the photograph and not a whole lot of time looking at my paper. And so it will create some fantastic distortion and abstraction that I personally think gives the picture so much more character. So don't worry about that. Don't let this be fun. Let it be loose. All you're going to do is you are going to follow the outline of the object, and if there's any notable details, then you can draw those in too. I'm going to do a picture of a fish that I took when I was taking one of my kids to our local aquarium. Okay, so now I have my drawing done, and I forgot to tell you to try as much as possible not to pick up your pen, but to have one continuous line. This is so crazy. It doesn't really look like a fish at all. Before you draw, you can kind of use your fingers and get an idea of where you want the object to end up being. I really like how this side is heavy with detail and this has hardly any. This is space to breathe. So next, we are going to take our watercolor and we're just gonna fill in some of the shapes. So now I have filled in all of the areas with color, and I wasn't trying to shade it or anything. I was just trying to give each area a color, a flat color, because we're focusing on shape here rather than form. So I flipped it upside down. I had this crazy looking drawing, and I'm just going to decide what lines I want to make pop out more, and I think I'm going to actually outline them in a thicker outline just so that there is more of a focal point, and then I will call it a day.